Hello guys and welcome back to the ITFC Unrestricted podcast. Episode 3 is here already. It's flying by, absolutely flying by. Hope you're all keeping well. Another week gone by. I was back to work this week. First full week back, so getting back to the swing of things. Looks like summer's over already. The storm of Francis we had the other day. Looks like the winter weather is drawing in, but at least the news and the action in Ipswich Town is hotting up. That's all we care about really here, isn't it? It's funny being back at work. When you've been off, you're out of the loop with things. Or even with the world, not always listening to the radio, but hearing on the radio recently, there's been some. Why is there so many covers coming out of songs? I've heard a cover of "Dancing on the Moonlight," Top Loader's classic. The Bangles' "Manic Monday." Someone's done a crass cover of that. And Tina Turner's done some weird remix of "What's Love Got to Do with It?" And you just think, no wonder modern music's crap. You're doing like remixes of classics and absolutely butchering them. Anyway, we'll roll straight into the news this week. I'm sure there's been plenty to talk about. There always is with Ipswich Town. Let's get into it.
News team, assemble!
God, I love that jingle. You're probably getting sick of it already, but I love it. If you can name the film, let me know in the comments or on the Twitter. If you know the film that it's from, then you're in the top tier for me, a top tier of people, and you've got good taste in movies. Obviously, there's some more pre-season action, which plays into our tactical review that we've got later on. But we'll roll with the news. So, on the back of the Spurs game on Sunday, came out about Paul Lambert's comments on James Norwood. Norwood hasn't featured in pre-season so far. He's still rehabbing his persistent groin injury that kept him out for most of last year. And obviously we've seen him linked away to other sides, Swindon Town being the latest linked with him with the loan move. So Lambert stated that James Norwood needs to show me what he can do to get back into the team and get back to doing what he did best at Tranmere. Lambert also claimed that Norwood went off the boil last season. He's certainly not the only one. I can see the frustrations. Norwood is a divisive player, as we mentioned last week, but a number of fans still continue to be sort of frustrated by what's been going on off the pitch. But on his day, he's a fantastic player, and I think it's a bit harsh for Lambert to come out, pot kettle black and all that. But we may never know really how much that injury played a part of last season. It certainly did play a factor in Norwood sort of getting a run of games, particularly sort of in the middle of the season. But we'll never know for sure how much that affected him as a player. But hopefully this doesn't drive a wedge between, Lambert and Norwood, because quite frankly, fit and firing, he's one of the better strikers in the division. He's certainly better in our team than anyone else's. So hopefully that doesn't drive a wedge. It's this tough love that we're seeing from Paul Lambert. We'll see. There's more of that to come this week as well. Tuesday, Town suffer a 4-1 defeat at the hands of West Ham in a pre-season friendly at Portman Road. Can't give you the full impression of that. Unfortunately, they didn't do a full rerun. I was asking for it, but that never happened. As I was back to work. So, yeah, missed the game. I know a lot of you watched it and saw what happened, but as I keep saying, it's only pre-season. Don't you worry. So, Sears scored the only goal for Town as Sebastian Haller scored a hat-trick for West Ham. I'm pretty sure he scored for Utrecht a couple of years ago in a pre-season when we drew with them. Might be wrong. Chambers mistaken. The overall performance of the defence seems to be the big talking point. I'm going to reserve judgment on most players, until we're playing in a competitive fixture against competition of our level. As much as we like our rivalries with West Ham, but we've been thumped by 2 Premier League sides, and we're a League One side, guys. What do you expect? And if you compare it to the Colchester game, who are closer to the calibre of opposition we're going to be playing week in, week out, we were comfortable in that game. So don't read too much into it. A lot of you seem to be keen on Corey and Darber. He's had a few run-outs on the left side as a left-sided centre-back. I still think we need to reserve judgment on that. Don't get too carried away by pre-season. He's not played many first-team minutes at a senior level. definitely needs that loan, and we've seen how well that worked for Luke Wolfenden. So I think that's a step we need to take for him, and hopefully we address centre half. Not going to jump down Chambers' throat after one mistake in a pre-season game, but his time's coming to an end, and we need to think about the future. I will mention Donatian. Like I said, I don't want to get on the back of anyone too much, but watching the Spurs game and the highlights against West Ham, his positioning is horrendous, and it has been this whole time at Ipswich. It's the one bugbear I have with Donatian whenever he plays. 1 minute he's in the Cobbold on the touchline, and the next minute he's playing centre half. And I think it was the third goal where it was worked out onto the West Ham right flank and they crossed it back across. He was absolutely nowhere at the back stick marking Haller. So, yeah, hopefully with KVY being back and fit, hopefully I won't have that worry too much. But the main thing we've seen in pre-season is continuity, playing the same style of football, it looks like, with degrees of success, but consistency is key, and hopefully we'll see that continue. Following up from last week as well, on Tuesday, Tommy Smith signs for Colchester on a full-time basis. Good signing for them and a good move for him. I'm sure he'll prove one of the premier centre-halves at the step below us. I know a lot of you wanted him back, but obviously that closes that chapter, so that isn't going to happen. Wednesday, second batch of tough love from Mr. Lambert. This time Luke Wolfenden's on the other end of it, stating that Wolfie needs to get going and start to perform, which was a bit odd and perhaps a bit poor timing considering what happened to Luke Chambers the game before against West Ham, and Wolfie didn't even play in that game. So, yeah, very, very interesting this. Wolfie supposedly is this laid-back character, and maybe he needs that motivation to get him going, and maybe even keep him grounded. There was obviously that interest from Sheffield United allegedly in January. Maybe we're just trying to keep both feet on the ground and focus on his football. He's still got plenty to learn, as much as he was one of our better players last year and had a really good year. He needs to learn. There's some savvy and very crafty strikers at League One level still. We need to see him develop a little bit more. So yeah, it got the goat of many Town fans. I can see why, especially with the Norwood comments and something else that will follow. So he's not had a good week, Mr. Lambert, but we'll see. We'll see how else he's going to annoy us this week. Oh dear, here we go. First home game of the season versus Wigan has been moved. It's now on Sky, so it'll be a live televised fixture. Moved to a Sunday lunchtime kickoff on Sunday the 13th of September. Still not really 100% sure if that game will go ahead. Obviously, we wish Wigan well in their fight against what happened to them. Certainly didn't deserve to be relegated on merit. They were far better than a lot of sides in the Championship last year, but down to poor owners, they're down there. So it's seemingly they seem to be a bit further ahead of where Bury and Bolton were last year. I've seen a few more senior players involved in their pre-season game. One in particular, Will Keane. He's there on trial, so he might come back to bite us. Will we beat the Sky curse? We've done it before against Wigan. 14-15. Luke Hyam and Connor Salmon scored against them in a 2-1 win. I don't think you can get many more improbable goal scorers than that. Hyam never scored many. Maybe if you chuck Scouse in there, that's another one. But should be fairly confident given all that's going on. No disrespect to Wigan. But we shouldn't underestimate him. And, if Will Keane does sign, the chances of an 89th minute shithouse winner, 1-0 Wigan wouldn't be too surprising. EFL Trophy schedule is announced for anyone that cares. Arsenal under-21s at home on Tuesday the 8th of September, Gillingham at home Tuesday the 6th of October, and Crawley away on Tuesday the 10th of November. Completely forgot about the long list of terms and conditions with who has to play in this. I think it's a certain amount of players who played the previous game or are going to play the next game, but for our sakes I just hope we sack it off. We don't need that worry this year. Certainly not the time we want to get to Wembley. We'd rather get there via other means, I'm sure. On the back of that, all Town's games will be streamed for free for season ticket holders via the iFollow service until the fans can return to the stadium. It's £10 per game for non-season ticket holders like myself. I've seen a few season ticket holders upset. It works out cheaper per game watching it via iFollow, but I think this outcome was always going to happen. I get people may feel an obligation to help the club out. It was a very uncertain time. We didn't know if this season would even get back underway as quick as it has done. But you'll be back before us people who didn't decide to renew will be back. So hopefully you're in sooner rather than later. The Wigan game incidentally won't be available on iFollow for non-season ticket holders due to it being on Sky. So you've got that game for free at least. So Thursday, ITFC Women, their schedule was announced. They start their season against #United Ladies. So this YouTube star Spencer Owen's team. I think they've taken over. Was it Enfield Town? Don't quote me on that. They've taken over. They've joined forces with another ladies team, and they'll feature in the league for the first time. Make sure you keep an eye out for any ticket information. Kieran Stanley is always a good person to follow for that. The media guy for the ladies team. So it's a great opportunity to go and watch some football. We said last week they got their announcement. They can start having a phased return for fans. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. If you want to get your football fix, I'd highly recommend going down there. Also on Thursday, good work from Luke Pennon digging this out. He broke it before anyone else, I think. Harry Wright has joined GAIS. Here we go. I'm going to pronounce this. This can be perfect. I learnt all my Swedish from the Muppets, good old Swedish chef. So I'm covered here. So GAIS stands for Gothenburg Athletic Odds Irregulars. Yep, they're a Swedish second division side. So he's gone there on loan for the remainder of their season. We've dealt with them before. Aaron Drinan went out there on loan. He only played about 5 times, I think. And Barry Cotter had a trial there as well. Didn't lead to a loan move, but he's been over there as well. But yeah, he needs first team minutes. We've said this. Obviously Cornell's come in now. Even then, I think it would have been unlikely he would have featured. So good for him to get out. I have no idea how good the Swedish second division is, but minutes is minutes at senior level. You can't complain. It's good for young Harry to go out there and get some minutes. Tough Love episode 3, the squad NHS photo controversy. So it was marred in controversy. Stuart Watson breaking the story about some youth players, in particular Dobra and El Mazzuni, being excluded from this. All the clubs do it, a PR photo where they all line up to make some sort of mosaic. So Dobra, El Mazzuni, Drinan and Darber and McGavin were all supposed to be in the photo, but when they turned up, they were turned away and said they wouldn't be featuring in the top secret friendly against Cambridge on Saturday either. So they featured in the 2-1 defeat to Norwich under 23s. Still can't beat them, even at any level. Well, the ladies can actually, tell a lie. So I think it's just a culmination of all that's gone on this week. It's another thing to add to the pile of Paul Lambert PR. He used to be really good at PR, but some PR disasters at the minute. But yeah, perhaps actions speak a little bit louder than words. But certainly the first two that I mentioned, Dobra and El Mazzuni, I'd be gutted if they're not in the first team. And I hope this is just, something that maybe has been slightly misreported, or maybe making a mountain out of a molehill. We'll find out. But yeah, it doesn't send the messages that the town fans want to hear. So yeah, not particularly great. The final bit of Friday news was Flynn Downes' interview. Really good interview from Flynn. Obviously there's been interest from Crystal Palace again. I think we've rejected a second bid. Hopefully we can keep hold of him, but really grounded interview, talking about sort of pre-season so far, playing against some high-level opposition, and his boyhood club, the club he supports, West Ham. All the makings of future captain at Ipswich Town, but I don't think he'll last that long. But really hope we do all we can to keep hold of him this season. I think a lot of people's valuations are a little bit out of kilter. He is a League One player at the end of the day. Chuck an old football cliche in there. if he was to go for 4 million, he'd still be the third highest midfielder transferred out of the league after Dele Alli and Fabian Delph. And you'd probably say they, at the time they were coming through, are probably seen as bigger and at least more popular targets than young Flynn is. But I'm sure he'll be around for another year, and wherever we end up next year, Flynn will be on to bigger and better things. So we'll move on to the top secret friendly with Cambridge. Really odd, this one. Wasn't really announced, whether it's because it wasn't being streamed. But we'll talk through what's just happened. So, final score. Cambridge United 1, Ipswich Town 0. It's pre-season. Yeah, it's probably not going to hold up with many of you. Obviously, none of us have seen the game. You might have, I don't know when the highlights are going to come out. I've recorded this literally 15 minutes after the game's finished. Obviously, we're listening to the commentary with some cracking names coming out there. We had Grant McCann, Brett McCann in midfield, Luke Wolfendale and Darla. There's some good names being bounded about, which that did bring a smile to my face. But yeah, not a fantastic result. And by what we were hearing, not sure how accurate it was a reflection of what was going on the pitch. It didn't really seem similar to what we have been seeing in pre-season with regards to a playing style. There seemed to be a lot more long ball involved, and again, the lineup wasn't particularly balanced or lined up right. I look at the midfield, and again, as we'll go on to, it's two box-to-box players. You probably want a more attacking player in that central area in a 4-3-3, and then Alan Judge at left wing, and we've seen him there far too many times, and we all know that's not his favourite position. But yeah, bit of a funny one. Puts a bit more pressure on Lambert, I think, for this opening game against Bristol Rovers in the Cup. I don't know how seriously we're going to take the Cup this year. I think before the pre-season games, you'd probably say probably wouldn't worry too much about the Cup. Maybe use that as another pre-season game. But the way the friendlies have gone, I think there's a little bit more pressure, even just to put the fans' minds at ease that this 4-3-3 is going to work, and yeah, we're going to go into the season on a high, really. But yeah, we'll talk about Bristol Rovers next week. Not going to build it up too much because I don't really know how they're going to treat this either. Obviously, they've lost Johnson Clark-Harris. They've had a big overhaul, and that's something, again, we're going to cover in next week's squad preview. So we'll move on to the tactical review, the moment you've all been waiting for. So now it's time for the tactical review. And I know this part of the podcast isn't going to be the most popular with many of you. There's a fair few Mike Bassett's out there. You love your 4-4-2s.
4-4-fucking-2.
But it's really important, I think, we understand how we're going to be playing. I'm not going to say this is going to see us storm the league, HMS Pistol League, and it's going to be amazing. It's just my interpretation of how we're going to be playing. And Paul Lambert came out after the West Ham game, after being asked by the social media team about this new playing style, and he said it's not new, it's just different, and it's something that he implemented in his first season, and he's right. We'll bring up on the screen now, so this is WhoScored.com's most used 11, obviously not always playing in this lineup, but the players who feature the most and the formation used the most. So it is, you look at that, a 4-3-3. So I'll go through the team for those listening on the podcast platforms. So the most used goalkeeper was Bartosz Białkowski, a back four of Jordan Spence, Luke Chambers, Matt Pennington and Jonas Knudsen at left back. A midfield three of Big Trev Chalobah, Cole Scouse and Flynn Downes. And then a front three of Gwion Edwards off the right, Colin Quinar as the main striker and Alan Judge at left winger. So we're going back to what we were playing in the 18-19 season. We used this system or a variant of it. We did fluctuate between this and a 4-2-3-1 on 31 occasions last year. So very familiar to that season. And, we didn't have the squad that was able to compete in the Championship, but we did pick up some good results in this spell. I can think back to the games against Derby and West Brom and Bristol City. Didn't win the games, but got some results there that we probably didn't expect. And there's some games you look back where we did pick up other points. Nottingham Forest always stands out, where, quite frankly, we should have won the game. So I'm really glad to see this coming back, and I'm hoping that we can learn from not only what quite didn't, maybe what didn't work in the 18-19 season, and we can use this with this new crop of players that we've got and be really successful. So we're going to look back at the comparisons between what we were doing in 18-19 and how that meshes with what we've seen in pre-season and the squad that we've got, how they fit into this system, as well as what went wrong last season, because quite frankly, I feel for me, this is the biggest problem that we had. The rotation of not only the players and the system caused chaos. The players didn't understand their roles week after week. And really, we didn't settle on a playing style. And by the time the better teams in the division found their feet with what they were doing and had built their chemistry and partnerships, we were left playing catch up and trying to throw anything at the wall that would stick. And you could see against some of the better sides in particular, we got found out really, really badly. So we'll start off with what went wrong last year, a little bit more detailed, and then we'll go on to the new system, or the old system if you're Paul Lambert, and how I feel we're going to be playing. Like I said, I'm no Pep Guardiola. I like to think I've got a tactical brain. Some of you may say I spend a bit too much time on Football Manager, but I don't even play the game, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm just going to summarise how I feel we're going to be playing and break it down. So last season, yes, we're going through it again. For my sins, I've gone through probably the two worst seasons in the last 20 years of Ipswich Town. So 1920 saw a mass fluctuation between the formations that we were playing. So we used the 3-5-2, 5-3-2 system around 15 times, 4-4-2, which we started off with. We used that 10 times, and then the system we saw the previous season, 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, we only saw that six times. And seemingly the squad was built to play with the latter system there, the 4-3-3. We only had 4 centre backs. We didn't have the greatest amount of striking options. We had Jackson and Norwood. Will Keane came in, probably a little bit of a gamble. Freddie Sears wasn't fit, and then you had all the youth lads behind them. And we had plenty of centre mids to fill in for that midfield three. But it's going to sound a little bit weird, but the form of Jackson and Norwood and their partnership in pre-season really threw a spanner in the works. Alongside some injuries for the first game, the form of these two lads really, they played themselves into a position where Lambert probably felt that he couldn't drop either of them for the first game. And like I said, we did have some injuries. John Noland, Gwion Edwards, Toto Enciala, Teddy Bishop were all missing. Judge and Hughes fitness was lacking a little bit. I think the latter did make the squad for the first game and did come on, but obviously has had previous injury issues. So we lined up with a 4-4-2 and it was working. It was all going like a dream, as they say. Jackson and Norwood, the goals were flying in. 100 points, 100 goals looks possible at this point. But I think we sort of saw signs that obviously we weren't intending to play this system. When we came against some of the better sides, you look at Sunderland, Peterborough and Doncaster in particular, I think they really sort of exposed that we weren't comfortable fully with this 4-4-2 system, and they were still finding their feet themselves. We didn't lose any of these games, but I think Doncaster was probably the game that we probably were gonna look like losing the most. We were very lucky not to come away with a defeat in that game. So that saw Lambert have a bit of a rethink. He's got to fit his two informed strikers who didn't have any injury issues at this point, or it wasn't as much of an issue as it would become later on. He's got to fit Jackson and Norwood in the team, but he wants to be a little bit more stable. So out go the two wingers from the 4-4-2. We bring in another centre-back in James Wilson to make a back three or a back five. And then we bring in another centre-mid, perhaps playing in that advanced role, into the midfield. So we line up in the 5-3-2 or the 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it. This was the first game we saw. This was MK Dons. We went on to win 1-0, but we also saw James Norwood go off injured in this game. I think a lot of people maybe forget when all this injury issues start, but that's the first time I really remember noticing it, and he was sort of in and out of the squad from this point onwards. It worked for a few weeks. We had a good run, plenty of clean sheets in that run as well, until we came to the game against Accrington Stanley live on Sky, and they really were the first team to expose us in this system. Kane Vincent-Young was injured at this point, picked up the injury a few weeks in the game prior. I think it was Fleetwood he got injured, and then we had some injuries as well. I think Flynn Downes got injured on international duty. I think there might have been a suspension in there. Wilson got sent off, didn't he, against Fleetwood? So in comes Toto Enciala. So the two wing-backs are now Luke Garbett, and Quayon Edwards is left to fill in. And like I said, I think Accrington really got at us here, realised our defensive deficiencies by sending both of their winger and their full-back down, pinning our wingers back, and that really restricted our momentum of being able to provide a service to the strikers. Obviously we didn't have Norwood at this time either, and like I said, the squad wasn't really built to play two strikers. We just stumbled into this form with the form of Jackson and Norwood, and now he's injured. It's Jackson paired up with any Tom, Dick or Harry you can. I think Judge played up there, and Will Keane eventually came in and didn't really play as much of a role as we expected. So they were the first team to expose us, and we kind of stuttered on from there. There was a lot of rotation. We had some international breaks and a lot of midweek games to fit in, but we stuck with the 3-5-2 for a fair while. Experiment with a few other formations on the way. The next game I can really remember us getting absolutely exposed was against Lincoln City away from home, and again another side who exploited us down the wings. All our width had to come from our wing backs, both attacking and defensively, and if you overload them, that's going to cause you a world of problems both going forward. You're starving your strikers, and when these guys aren't particularly great at defending, it puts a lot of pressure on your defence to keep clean sheets. And that 5-3 game was a sort of real kick in the teeth. So that was really where you could sort of, the wheels were really beginning to fall off, and we were wobbling quite significantly. But Lambert, to his credit, he looked at ways of rectifying this. He copied seemingly the Sheffield United system, and Chambers and Wolfington became these kind of bombing centre halves, providing the width that was missing and that support to Edwards and Garbett down the flanks. And it worked for a few weeks, and I was really enjoying it, to be honest. But then came the Peterborough game, and crikey, talk about an absolute implosion. They realised quite quickly, if we can stop these centre halves from bombing on, it's a very boring 5-3-2 system with strikers being starved, and if we are relentless like we can be in attack, we're going to have a fun afternoon. And they did. And after that, it was really, we were left scrambling to try and find what would work, throwing any system at the wall and hoping it would stick. And sadly, that's where the season fell apart. Lambert was quite adamant that that's where it was, but the signs were there early on. And I think we got that start where we started really well, but we were playing a system that wasn't what we intended to play, which was the 4-4-2. And from there, the other teams have started to stick with their tried and trusted formations, and by the time we got into the new year, they'd cracked it. They know exactly how they're playing, and we were struggling to find out what we were going to do. So, yeah, really tough season, as I said at the start of this bit. So many different types of system, not even similar systems, different types of system added within all the players that had to rotate within that. It caused us a world of problems. So really happy to see the 4-3-3 come back. Like I said, not going to say this is going to secure us promotion and we're going to absolutely blitz the league, but it's a start, and I'm really glad to see that the coaching staff at least recognises that that's where they went wrong. So we'll move on to the 18-19 and pre-season comparison, as well as how I feel we're going to be playing. So the 4-3-3, or as we have seen, the 4-2-3-1, they can very much interchange. There's not too many differences between the two, but we'll treat it as a 4-3-3. That's what we've been used to seeing in pre-season at least. And yeah, we'll go through sort of some key positions in that, and where we need to learn from some of the things that didn't work in the 18-19 season. Obviously, we can all appreciate that we didn't have the quality to really compete in the Championship for much longer than we did. It was very much damage limitation getting into the back end of that season, I feel. But, you know, it's important to learn from that as well. And hopefully being in the lower division where, as we saw last week, where we broke down the stats, we had a lot of possession last year. As long as we use that possession in the right areas and be a bit more clinical this year, we should be looking up. So we'll start with the goalkeepers, and we did rotate our goalkeepers in the 18-19 season. Obviously their form wasn't fantastic, but Gherkin and Bart did battle it out, and I think we're going to see that again. With Holy and Cornell, we're going to see that rotation again, and I think a key part of the goalkeeper position is distribution, something that we did struggle with last year. Obviously Norris, I feel, was a better distributor than Holy, but obviously wasn't at times he had those catastrophic mistakes in him as well. So Cornell's obviously come in, and Holy has got this injury issue which seems to be nagging on, this shoulder injury. So again, that was an important step, I feel, to take. Maybe we didn't quite understand it at the time, bringing in a second goalkeeper, but like we said last week with Cornell in the squad review, he was statistically the best keeper in League 2, 13 clean sheets and a promotion winning side on a free. It's a no-brainer really not to take him on, particularly with Holy's injury issue. So I think we're going to look to be playing it out from the back more. That requires the goalkeeper to communicate a bit more. I don't think Gherkin and Bart were particularly great at this. I'm hoping Cornell can be better and Holy can improve. So that's the goalkeepers. Fullbacks are a key part of this system. So we saw James Bree come in on loan to replace Jordan Spence, who wasn't particularly reliable defensively, and he was okay going forward, but not brilliant. Bree was definitely an upgrade. So we've got Kane Vincent-Young on the right. Don't need to say much more about him. He's fantastic. So he'll fill that role well. And then on the other side, Kenlock played surprisingly more games than I thought. Again, a more attacking option than Knudsen. So we've got Stephen Ward on that side, and they're really there to provide the width and get forward. And depending on how we use our strikers, they could be fundamental in helping us be more clinical in front of goal. Them getting up and down the pitch is going to be key to us progressing the ball forward, creating chances, and holding that width really will help give the opposition defences a real headache at times. You know, I think the problem we had playing what we did last year is they had to do all the defensive work and all the attacking work with no one ahead of them or behind them when we were playing the 3-5-2. And once you get double teamed, it's really difficult unless you're a superior wing back to deal with that. So hopefully having two players on either side will help us for next season. Centre halves, not particularly key as long as they can play out from the back. I know obviously Chambers is not particularly popular at the minute after what happened, but Wolfenden I feel is going to be absolutely more than comfortable playing out from the back, you know, not only passing but dribbling, and so long as they're solid. You know, Toto came in towards the back end of that 18-19 season, and he was okay. You know, he had a mistake in him at times. You know, you never felt easy with him back there, but he did okay at times, and as long as they're solid, that's all really that matters. They're not going to be expected to spray raking passes. That will be for a role we're going to go on to in a minute. Obviously, I think what I've noticed on the Paul Lambert, we play very much a cover-based system. So, depending on where the ball is on the pitch, you know, if it's coming down the opposition's left flank, then the whole defence will shift across, closing the gaps, making it a lot harder for them to play through us. Definitely seen that in a back four. As trying to do that in a back three is very difficult. Back five, obviously a lot easier, but very defensive. And that 5-3-2, 3-5-2 position formation last year put a lot of pressure on the centre mids to help out in defence. This should, in theory, be a lot more solid having a back four for this season. So we're now going to move on to the midfield, which I feel is really where we need to get the 4-3-3 right. And the key man in this is the midfield pivot, so the deep line player. He's going to be the player who's going to receive most of the ball, so either from the goalkeeper directly, or if we work it between the centre halves to him, he's there to really progress the ball up the field. So whether that's distributing the ball out wide to either fullback on the side to drive the ball up the flanks, or progress the ball through the midfield with his other players, then that's down to him. And really, I think we saw in pre-season where players are going to fit in there. You know, I think a lot was made of McGavin coming off against Spurs after only about 15 minutes, but looking at it, I could see that he wasn't dropping in to receive the ball from the goalkeeper or the centre half, and that was really stopping us being able to play the style that Lambert is trying to implement here. So obviously Skuse is probably the favourite there to play in that position, you'd feel, and who played there most of the time in 18-19 along with Chalobah. But yeah, I think we've got a wide variety of players who could play there. My pick personally would be Andre Dazelle, because he's got a wide range of passing, able to dribble himself out of trouble, and he's a very tidy player. Hughes could also fill in there as well, I feel. Very physical option, stable option, and a good passer as well. When we could switch to 4-2-3-1, which is slightly more defensive than the 4-3-3 I feel we are going to play, and it's essentially the next player we're going to talk about will drop in to provide a bit more protection for this pivot, this deep line player. So yeah, he's very much the key player in all this, and we've really got to get that player right, because that's going to be the way we're progressing the ball up the field. So next to him, they'll play slightly further forward. You're going to have a box-to-box midfielder, and we all know about the Claude Makelele position. I feel, for me, this is the Flynn Downes role. So he played this at times during the 18-19 season, you know, maybe a little bit naive and raw compared to what he is now. But we also saw Chalobah fill in there as well, and basically they're there to not only help drive the ball up the field, but to break up opposition's attacks and recycle the ball. The problem they have is, you know, they've got to be not only defensively minded, but also have an eye in the attacking third. And that can be really difficult at times, particularly if you're against some capable opposition. John Noland also came into this role at times, but I think the problem we had, and something we're going to talk about with the next position in the midfield three, we relied on him to be very much the creator in the team. But I could see him filling in here as well. So for me, this is where I see Flynn Downes playing, which is this box-to-box role. You know, when he's on his A game, he's arguably the best player in the division in that position, and he'll be really key to basically breaking up opposition's attacks as well as progressing the ball forward and making sure we're recycling the ball when it does come loose. So the final player in the midfield, I feel, is going to be the attacking midfield, or the creative, the number 10 role. So as I just mentioned, John Noland was probably the most likely player to fill this position in the 18-19 season, and he did come up with 3 goals but no assists. But we have a wealth of talent who could play this role, I feel, and there's loads of different skill sets. So I think this will be a good position for Alan Judge, being a creator, being able to play those passes through to the attackers. Or you could get in someone who's a little bit more of a dribbler who can drive through. So you look at your Teddy Bishops, your Armando Dobras, or someone who's a mixture of the both. And I think this would be a really good role for Idris El Mazouni, because he can not only drive the ball forward, but he's able to score goals. As we've seen, he scored a cracker against Colchester, and if you've seen his highlights from his time at Cambridge, there's some crackers in there too. If we stick with the 4-3-3, obviously they'll have to do a little bit more defensive work. But the number 10, if we play a 4-2-3-1, will play up behind the striker, and really we need to see them supporting the striker and helping contribute not only with the goals but much needed assists in midfield, and help convert some of these chances. You know, we said last week how poor the conversion rate was. We really need to see that improve for this season coming forward. So we'll talk about the wingers or the wide forwards. So 18-19, we saw Gwion Edwards play on the right in pre-season with Preseason play on the left. And on the left, Sears and Judge shared most of the time in 18-19. But I don't think that's Judge's strongest position. I think he did struggle there at times. Can play there, but definitely not his best position. So it's really good to see Gwion go over to his favoured side, and that may suggest what we're going to try and do for this season. I think the biggest problem we had in the 18-19 season was the golf and the quality. There's times where we're not always in the game, very much struggling and holding on rather than actually being on the attack in the ascendancy, having more of the ball. We're playing up against better oppositions in the Championship. Now that we're seen as one of the better sides, and I think some of the players who'd be able to fill in this role, could be really dangerous here. And Gwion playing on the left, cutting in on his right foot and being a real goal threat will only help us, I feel. It depends how we play this role. It really does. Do we see him as traditional wingers? In that case, they'll be sticking wide and getting balls into the box, being more creators. Or are they wide forwards? So maybe playing inverted. I could see Jackson playing on the right, cutting in as well. They would play closer to the striker and getting into the box and play more of a part in scoring goals rather than just creating. For me, I'd play Jackson and Edwards. Jackson on the right and Edwards on the left. And you've also got the likes of Dobra, Lancaster, El Mazzuni, Freddie Sears, who can all fill in there. The biggest problem we'll have is if they play as wingers and we haven't got the midfield balance right behind them, your strikers can become really isolated. And I think that's what we saw in 18-19. We had a wide variety of strikers in this position. So Quinar played there, Jackson, Will Keane, Ellis Harrison. Obviously there's some more. Jordan Roberts, Jonathan Walt is also featuring in there. Mixed to limited success, and that's simply because of the support they got. The midfield balance behind them wasn't quite right, and the wide men weren't particularly right either. So that's where I feel we really need to learn, making sure we support the striker. They've got a lot of work to do. They're very much going to be part of ensuring that they press, but if you put the right man there, and I think if Norwood is going to stay with us, he's the right man to put in between there. Just get James Norwood doing what he does best, running in behind and finishing. I think he would probably be one who's not particularly happy about his numbers. Not a bad first year, but I'm sure he would have loved more goals. If you compare him to who else we've got, Jackson I think is better at the wing. He had a lot of problems with offside when playing up front, particularly on his own. Hawkins could be a good support option, someone to bring on from the bench. But I see Norwood really as that number 9. So looking at it as a whole, I think the lessons we need to learn for this season is really how we support the striker. That's both from the central area as well as out wide. If we're going to use the wide players as wingers, then the support has to come from the centre of midfield far more than we've seen in the last few seasons. I think that midfield balance is really key to what we're doing. I look at the pre-season games, and the Spurs one in particular stands out, where in both halves the midfield balance wasn't quite right, I feel. The first half we had Judge and Bishop in there, two creators who you probably need that Flynn Downes type player to break up play and play more of a role in both boxes. Then in the second half we changed to having Andre Dazelle and Flynn Downes, as well as John Noland also came in there. Again, you'd probably say two box-to-box players in there, lacking that attacking player. So really hope we get that attacking balance right in the midfield, because we saw last week the numbers are down in midfield, but the quality is there, I feel, and we just need to utilise it better. And going back to the wingers, I hope we play with wide forwards. That would really allow our fullbacks to bomb on and have a bit more space to whip crosses in. Obviously they're going to play on their natural sides, I feel. If I was the manager, some of you might wish I was, but if Kane Vincent-Young and Stephen Ward are bombing down and getting crosses in, you really want your attacking players to be in dangerous positions and able to score goals there. Again, it's a wealth of talent, and I just hope we use that inverted role more than a wide role. So that's how I feel we're going to play. What I really like about the 4-3-3 is that we can change it up to be an effective formation, both be more attacking as well as more defensive. You know, we can easily change it into a 4-2-3-1 where the Flynn Downes box-to-box midfielder drops in alongside the midfield pivot, that deep line playmaker, and help us out there. And the number 10 can still be an outlet there. Or we can drop even deeper into a 4-1-4-1 if we really need to anchor in and secure a result. So I like how we're going. The worries I think people have are the centre halves. We've still got time to address that, whether the players in the squad develop and learn the system as we go along, or we bring in someone who's a little bit more capable, whether that be on a permanent deal or on loan. We'll have to see, but as I said, it's really key to see this season that we've got a system in place, and I'm glad that they've rectified it for the upcoming season. So I'm sure many of you might wonder how I would line us up for the 2021 season either. Christ, the years fly by, don't they? So obviously playing the 4-3-3. So in goal we've got David Cornell. He edges out Thomas Holy. For me, very difficult to choose between the two. It's more of a case of what we know we've got as opposed to a new goalkeeper. I think we just need to see, to start off with, at least what Cornell can offer, and maybe be a little bit more of a better distributor than Thomas Holy. Right back, Kane Vincent-Young, no-brainer. We'll offer that attacking option. Centre half, so right side of centre half will be Luke Chambers for the meantime, and Luke Wolfenden will play left side of centre half. I would like to see another centre half come in, but I think Chambers can cope there as long as he just does the basics and he plays on his natural side. Left back will be Stephen Ward. I think he's shown in the pre-season games that he can get up and down the pitch well, even despite his age, and I think even Miles Kenlock coming in would be able to provide that for us as well. In the midfield pivot, the deep line role, I really want to see Andre Dazelle there. I think this is really the time we need to push Andre into a position where he's got some responsibility and be a key member of our team rather than a bit part player. I think his range of passing and his ability on the ball, you know, he's not a weak lad, he can be quite physical as well. I think that would serve him well, having some responsibility in that midfield and being a real key player as part of the team. Box to box is Flynn Downes all day. That's his role. He's got to play there for me. I think we've seen him play more in the deep line role, but I think you lose his energy further up the pitch. And then in the number 10, this really can vary depending on who we're playing with the opposition, but to start, I'd play Alan Judge there. We need someone who's got the ability to take set pieces, and Judge is probably the best out of the options that we've got. Andre can take set pieces as well. And then we move to the front three. So as I said earlier, off the right hand side will be Jackson as an inverted forward. I think that is his best position, where he can break lines and try not to get caught offside too much, use his pace and, you know, arrive at the back post to be a real threat and contribute with goals and assists. Up front, the lone striker James Norwood, as long as he's purely tasked with putting the ball in the back of the net and we give him enough chances, I think he'll work wonders for us there. And then on the left, he's finally getting his chance. We've seen it twice in pre-season already. I think we saw it again against West Ham. I missed the game obviously, but Gwion Edwards. So I think this is again another player who will contribute heavily, and we've got a number of options who can fill in around that. So that's where I'd like to see us play, guys. You know, that's my interpretation of Lambert's 4-3-3. Probably won't be good as Pep Guardiola's back in the day when he was at Barcelona, but glad to see we've got a system in place, and however it goes, we've got somewhere to start off with. So that is the tactical review. Again, Might not have been the most popular section. You might not even agree with me, but let me know what you think. And if this is a good CV for me to get an Ipswich manager's job later down the line, then I'll take it. Or if I've just given away all Lambert's secrets to the opposition, I apologise in advance. So there we go. Tactical review, guys. All done. That'll do for this week then, guys. Thank you for listening again. Next week we've got the season preview. So we'll break down all 23 teams that are going to be in our division next year. I was lucky enough to see most of them. Obviously didn't see the teams that have joined us from the Championship or League Two, but I've done my research, had a look into them and see what we think. Probably end up insulting many a rival fan by absolutely slaughtering their team or getting some facts wrong, but I like to think I've done my research. That's what we do over here. Don't forget to check out FNZ as well. We've got our Monday night show returning this week if you're interested in that. 90+3. We've got, who have we got this week? Dimitrios Konstantopoulos. So I speak Greek as well as Swedish. We've got him on as well. So yeah, it should be an interesting watch. Plenty of stories to come and some more exciting characters along the way. Thanks guys, take care. Thank you for listening to this week's ITFC Unrestricted podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Buzzsprout and TuneIn. If you haven't already, why not give us a follow or subscribe on our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode wherever you are listening. A new episode will be available at the same time on all platforms every Sunday at 6 p.m. For more immediate reaction to all the latest ITFC news, give me a follow on Twitter at rskid26. Go on, you know you want to. Until next week, I've been your host, Mark Beck, so take what you need and be on your way and keep on following town.